And thank you very, very much for inviting me today. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm very, very excited and privileged to be here with you all. And yeah, and what a fantastic anniversary as well. I didn't realize until Andreas mentioned it to me yesterday. So my name is Marta Mills, and I'm an international sustainable tourism consultant. And I'll be talking to you about how to create an attractive destination without damaging the destination's culture and nature. I'll be using an example of Georgia, a place that I've been going back and forth for the last 20 years, and hopefully by the end of presentations to see why I've chosen Georgia. So just very briefly, just a few words about me. So I first went to Georgia in 2001, so it will be 20 years in August, and I've been back and forth 18 times, which it's, you know, my friends just can't really believe that I've been so fascinated by the country, but I'm just absolutely fascinated by the Caucasus. I've been also hiking in Georgia and Armenia quite a lot. So my heart really is in the Caucasus Mountains. I spent 5 years working for the Department for International Development, which is now the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in London. And I was responsible for running Europe and Central Asia Department. And the Central Asia Department also had South Caucasus in it. And so I was working on Georgia, Armenia, Central Asia, so Dagestan, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and a bit of Russia as well. So it was also an absolutely fascinating period to do that. And then I got involved in a project called Trans-Caucasian Trail. So in 2015, I was one of the 4 people, so it was me and 3 other guys. We launched a Trans-Caucasian Trail project. So we had an idea to build a long distance hiking trail between Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. So sort of joining the Caucasus between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, going across Greater Caucasus and Lesser Caucasus. And the trail is still being built. When it's done, it will be about 3,000 kilometers long. It will take about 3 months to hike the whole thing. I've done bits of it. I've hiked some of it. The picture I've put there, this is in Svaneti in northern Georgia. I think I'm actually wearing my Trans-Caucasian Trail t-shirt there. And that's where we launched the project back in 2015. So I worked on the project voluntarily for 3 years. And then I did a lot of community consultation on the project, and then I sort of passed it on to now it's run by Georgia and Armenia teams who are actually building the trail. And then I've worked since 2015, 2016, I've worked like this international tourist expert for various projects for international organizations in Georgia, in Armenia, in the Balkans, so Albania, Bosnia, Serbia, Poland, and then I did a big training project for sustainable tourism in Italy last year. And when it comes to degree, I got a master's in responsible tourism management from Leeds in the United Kingdom. And also since 2016, I've been lucky enough to be invited to quite a lot of events and conferences on tourism, where I was mainly talking about Georgia and the Caucasus and the Trans-Caucasian Trail, and actually building that international recognized destination that is also based on sustainable tourism, which again means tourism that doesn't damage the nature and doesn't damage the local culture of the destination. And I just put a link there. You see, this is just a link to my website, and that's where all the sort of speaking engagements and all the trainings is listed. I'm also conducting loads of training on tourism at the moment, loads of online training, of course. Now, so that's just a few pictures from various conferences as well, and you can see, you know, Georgia there. It's just mainly talking about trails, hiking, sustainable tourism, and just this is about today's presentation. So I would like to, mainly through pictures, I'd like to show you the challenges, so the problems, and also opportunities that come from tourism when tourists actually start coming. So I'll start from the expectations and motivations to travel to Caucasus from international tourists. That was a piece of research that I did a few years ago in Georgia as part of my master's. And then I'll talk about that thing. So we sort of start from the motivation to travel. Then I show you an example from Svaneti. So that's the mountains region in Georgia. It's also very, very close to my heart. But I've watched tourism development for the last 20 years in Svaneti, and I've seen what's gone wrong, like very, very wrong. And I would like to give you some advice what not to do, as well as what to do. And also we can talk about next steps for Dagestan. And again, based on the experience in Georgia, I'd like to tell you what can happen, what you might expect, and also how to deal with all the opportunities and also all the challenges. And I'll be very, very welcome to, please, if you have any questions throughout the presentations, please put them in a chat, and then we can discuss later. And I'll be available throughout the conference as well. So hopefully we will be able to, we have a chance to answer any questions you might have. So let's start. So this is a slide that I usually use when I start my presentations, you know, all these events that I've mentioned earlier. So when I talk to Georgia, this is usually the first that I need to show people what Georgia is. I need to show people what the Caucasus is. So sort of starting from there, and then I just put a little map here at the bottom with the red, that red highlighted bit. This is Svaneti. So this is the region that I'll be talking about. And again, just to give you, not everyone might know where Svaneti is. So this is just sort of the northern one, and that borders the Russian Federation as well. It's sort of, you know, one of the northest, well, the most northern part of Georgia, and it's got the highest number of the highest peaks in South Caucasus as well. And I think I start from this. This is a very interesting slide to show you the how quickly tourism has grown in the last 10, 12 years in Georgia. And I sort of put the slide there because I thought that might give you an indication that something like this could happen in Dagestan. We don't know. I mean, it's very, very difficult to predict. I mean, there's so many things, that so many external factors, you know, mainly, you know, the political situation and all the advice. Like, for example, the UK Foreign Office, so the place where I used to work, still has an advice for the people in Great Britain not to go to Dagestan after, you know, for whatever reason, just don't go to Dagestan. And so it's very difficult for us to go because if the advice is there from the ministry, then we cannot get insurance. And so we sort of going at our own risk, and so and that's difficult. So unless you know, until things like this are lifted, then it will be very difficult to predict what the tourism will be like. However, based on all the international trends and what the things that are actually happening with tourism, I mean, forget COVID, you know, just we're sort of talking traveling post-COVID, and hopefully the tourist sector regaining the strength that you had before COVID. But tourism will grow again, and tourism in Dagestan will grow as well. And as you can see, in 2008, I mean, I don't have any data from before. So when I went just to give you an indication, when I went in 2001, when I went to Georgia, I was there for 4 weeks, and I met 2 international tourists there, 2 others. So I was there with my boyfriend, met 2 other international tourists. So, and I'm sure there were others, but in 4 weeks, you know, we really were very, very, very unique people, and you know, and we had a fantastic time. And I think that's part of the reason I fell in love with Georgia, is that the hospitality was absolutely incredible, but people were not really spoiled about tourism in a way. You know, now when they've got 10 million people, nobody would notice me as a tourist. You know, when I was there 20 years ago, everyone welcomed me because everyone was just really welcoming and to international tourists. Because there were not that many. So, but I don't have any data from that time. But you know, even 2001, you see, it's just over 1 million, and then it's growing. So 2008 was just, you know, 1,300,000. Then only 4 years later, it's already 4.5 million. Then and the last 3-4 years before COVID, where just, you know, the growth was absolutely rapid. You see, you've got 6 million. So it was pretty much 1 million growth per year. So you've got, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and all the predictions for 2020 were to go over 10 million. And also Georgia has a tourism development strategy that was approved in 2015. So it was a strategy 2015 to 2020. And in that strategy, and I remember exactly when it was written, in that strategy 2015, they said, we would like to have by 2021, we would like to have 11 million tourists. And I was always, to be very, very perfectly honest, I was always very against that. And I was really upset when I saw it in the strategy, because I thought, you know, it's 3.8 million people in Georgia. And I was just thinking, there's no infrastructure there. There's not enough hotels. There is not enough guest houses. The roads are not good enough to host 11 million people, you know, in a country that's got less than 4 million, and and over a million lives in the capital, in Tbilisi. So that it was a very, very ambitious target, and maybe a bit unrealistic to actually have in practice. However, they really were nearly there in Georgia. So, you know, having 10 million, nearly 10 million in 2019, and if it wasn't for COVID, then the predictions were for over 10 million, and they probably would have reached 11 million by this year, by 2021. But that's just a different story about COVID. We can also talk about it later. I mentioned earlier, I did a big piece of research with some organizations in Georgia back in 2018 on the motivations and expectations of international tourists to travel. And I thought it would be interesting for you to share, because Dagestan has got sort of, it's similar, it's in the Caucasus, it's got mountains, it's got local culture, it's got the food. So I thought that would be interesting for you to see, because we don't have the research for Dagestan, but I'm pretty sure that this will be very, very similar story in Dagestan. So what came out from this research, and we did loads of interviews with international tourists like throughout the summer of 2018, was, you know, what people want. Why do you come to the Caucasus? Well, we come to get some peace. We come to see wildlife that we can't see anywhere else, you know, and the Caucasus is famous for, particularly the mountains, famous for wildlife that you can't be found anywhere else. People want to be close to nature. People want to escape, right? Escape the cities, escape the being online all the time. They want that breathing space, and they want nature. They want the beauty of the Caucasus Mountains, and they also want authenticity, which means that they don't want to go and stay in big hotels when they go to the mountains. They want to stay in guest houses with local people. Most tourists anyway. They don't want big skyscrapers hotels. They don't want big swimming pools in the mountains. They want to have the authentic feeling of being in a place. Of course, there are some small things, like, you know, they want to be in a small guest house, but they want to have Wi-Fi. They want to be connected. But that's just the way we all are at the moment. But generally, you know, people come because the Caucasus is still seen, you know, in the UK, in Germany, in Western Europe mainly. It's one big unknown. But at the same time, when people start digging a little bit, it's the nature that comes through. It's the culture that comes through. You know, when it comes to Georgia is advertising itself as the cradle of wine. So, you know, they claim they invented, they pretty much invented wine, and that was the first wine was ever found in Georgia. So that's, you know, that's the part of the culture. So that's the festivals, that's the music, that's that thing that really is unique and authentic for the destination. And of course, adventure. So and I'm not only talking about skiing and mountain biking, but although that is very, very popular amongst tourists, but it's just that the opportunity that the Caucasus gives for space, you know, for the outdoor activities in this absolutely beautiful, scenic, unspoiled, untouched nature. And the picture here, this is actually my husband hiking in Svaneti back in 2015, I think. So that was I don't know, probably my 15th time in Georgia. So I took him there for the first time, and he's British, and I don't think he would ever think of going to Caucasus, but fell in love absolutely, and has been back and forth since there as well. So, you know, it's nature, culture, adventure, and also people want, they want experiences. So they want to learn while they're traveling, and and culture, it's not only reading about the culture, but it's actively participating. So there's an opportunity to have local festivals that where people can learn and experience in local traditions, local customs. I've got a picture here. This is on the left. There's a festival called We Are Svaneti. And I don't know if you can read, but even the flyer said, come and meet local people, enjoy traditional music, taste the local food, and the last thing is feel the energy of Caucasus Mountains and their people. And I think this is something absolutely wonderful for tourists who really want to come and experience nature, culture, and the authenticity. They can get immersed in this, and that could be an amazing experience. And the picture on the right, this is Tusheti. So this is one of the most remote mountainous regions in Georgia, and this is actually on the border with Dagestan, as you probably know. And I spent a month in Tusheti. That was my last time when I was in Georgia in August 2019. I was doing research for my master's degree, and I was doing research on how the local people perceive tourism development and perceive tourists. Do they want more tourists? Are there any conditions that they want? Do they want tourist development at all costs? And actually, what was very interesting, so I actually stayed in one of these little guest houses here in Omalo, in Tusheti, and again, plays very, very close to my heart. But it was also really interesting. The research I've done also showed that the local people they were very happy for tourists to come, but not at all costs. They were just saying, we want international and local tourists to come to Tusheti and experience Tusheti. It's all wonderful, but not at the cost of our culture and traditions. If people come, they have to respect our traditions, they have to respect our culture, they have to respect that, for example, women cannot go into little shrines and little temples that they've got, not temples, but more like shrines in Tusheti, and it's for international tourists. I mean, I can understand why, I'm expecting, although it's upsetting for me as a woman not being able to go and explore everything as much as the men can, but this is the local tradition, and I need to respect that as an international tourist. So it was also very interesting to see that the expectations from the local people about the destination, and then how it meets the expectations of tourists. And I think I'm talking about it because I think it's also very important for you in Dagestan to also, realize, and I'll talk about it later, but just to realize, what do you want? What kind of tourists do you want to come? What do they want? What do you want to share from destinations? Are you happy to open up? And are you happy to, do you want coaches of people coming, or do you want maybe small groups? Do you want families? And if you want families, what have you got there to offer them? What can you give them? And what you don't want to show them, maybe like in Tusheti, there are things that they don't want tourists to come and see. There's one festival that they don't want tourists to come and participate. And this is just something that, again, it's that dialogue between the local people and tourists that needs to be really involved sort of included in planning for tourism, and just seeing what do you want and what you don't want to show from a destination. Moving on, and again, just going back to expectations. So it's nature, culture, adventure, and of course, local food. And we can't forget the food. So this is, and it's not only tasting food, but it's also making food. So another opportunity would be to, one of the things that you can offer is maybe some workshops that you want to make, some little sort of classes, lessons that you want people to come and learn how to make local food. The picture on the right here is making kinkali. So kinkali is you've got a picture of kinkali at the bottom, just behind my head, and that's the sort of little dumplings that I'm sure are very common across the Caucasus. So really dumpling with meat. So they're absolutely delicious, and local tourists want to come and taste it. However, because as I said before, people want to experience tourism, if they can come and experience making little khinkali, that's something that they will learn, and that's something that will stay with them for a long time. And I'm on one of the sort of there's like a Georgia, there's a Facebook group, of course, about sort of tourists who come to Georgia, and they share experiences, and very often, and there are people from all over the world, and very often people just post pictures of khinkali that they've made, from someone is somewhere in the United States or Australia or wherever, and they just like, oh, look at the khinkali I've made, so it's that thing of creating an experience that will stay with tourists after they've gone. And so if you've got something in Dagestan that you can offer, just invite them to all and have babushkas making food with them, and have that as an experience. People will remember, and they go back to the UK, they go back to Germany, they will go back to the United States, and they will make this food and share. And this is also, this is part of the experience. This is also part of marketing for Dagestan. And then I've got an example here. So there's also something that I've been sort of usually mentioning in presentations. So there is a little guest house. It's called Hotel Gallery. I mean, it's not a hotel. It really is a small family house in a place called Oni in Racha. Racha is another mountainous region in Georgia, just next to Svaneti, and it borders South Ossetia. So just to give you and the Russian Federation, so just give you the idea of where it is. But so Hotel Gallery, it's run by a married couple who are artists, and all the pictures that you've got on the walls are painted, all the things that are made by this husband and wife. So the wife painted the pictures, the husband made all the furniture in the house. It's all sort of very, very, very simple, just white walls and a lot of wood, but it's very stylish, and it's done to a really, really nice, good quality from local, local food, but for local materials, local wood, but it's also based on the local traditions. And so it's very, very authentic. So the furniture are made by the owner. It's very clean. They provide amazing food, and of course there are opportunities for tourists to come and make the food. I was there in October twice. And October is the wine, the grape, picking season. So they've got this massive, like a wooden container with grapes, and you can just jump in and with your bare feet and just press the grapes, and and then you can see how the juice comes through like a tube, and that's how you make wine. So and I still remember that experience of jumping into that massive container with grapes and just like dancing, jumping up and down and making wine in that little place. And it's and I said here experiences, they make local food, the grape pressing, they make like you can make cha-cha, which is the local alcoholic drink, and then you can drink it, of course, with everybody, and they're really, and also so the father and mother run it, and the son is a local guide, and he takes people to local to local attractions, and it's not cheap. I mean, it's about, last time I was there in 2018, and it was 70 euros per night per person. 70 euros is a lot of money in Georgia. You can find a nice place to stay for 15 euros, and this is 70, but it's booked up for the whole year. So they don't have one night that it's not booked, because it's got such an amazing experience, and it's so welcoming, and at the same time it provides all this experience of great food, of the authenticity, the high quality, which is very important, that people are very happy to spend 70 euros per night and stay there, rather than going next door to a guest house that you can stay for 10 euros. So again, based on the Georgian example, you see here we've got nature on the left. That's again pictures from Tusheti, culture in the middle, And then adventure, beautiful mountains, and then mountain biking. So those Georgia's main assets, you know, the main things that they can offer are also the main opportunities for tourism. And I really believe, I haven't been to Dagestan, but from what I've seen and the pictures I've seen and what I've read, this is also your opportunity, you know, nature, culture, food, and the adventure. Hold on, someone just posted something and I am on the chat and I'm unable to go to the next slide. I can now. Okay, and now just moving to Svaneti. So as I said before, Svaneti is that province in northwestern part of Georgia. They've got, so it's inhabited by Svans, and Svans have their own culture, their own food, their own language. So they speak Georgian, but they also speak Span, which is completely different. They've got their own alphabet, and they've all, you know, all customs and traditions. And at the moment, from the main, so the mainland Georgia to get to Svaneti, it takes about 5 hours on the mountainous road. The first time I went in 2001, it was actually the first place that I went to in Georgia. So from the mainland Georgia to Svaneti, it took us about 15 hours because there was no road. I mean, there was a very bad road. And then in 2010, Saakashvili, the then president, built a road. And because there's one road there, still it's a mountainous road, so it still takes 5 hours, but not 15. And people don't die anymore as much as they did back in 2001. So when I actually got there with my friends, people were just absolutely amazed that we went to Svaneti, that we made this 15-hour journey, that we're fine, we're not dead. And maybe that's why even though the hospitality was even better, because everyone was just absolutely amazed that we actually made it there after that long journey. And this is a quote from one of the websites. You know, it's just an ancient land. It's never been conquered by anyone, because and I'll show you why. So the geography, so the mountain on the right is Mount Uzhba, which is not the highest peak, as you know, in the Caucasus. However, it's one of the most dramatic, and it's got the sort of the M shape, and people, and many amazing climbers actually died there, because to climb Uzhba, to claim to have climbed Uzhba, you need to climb both peaks, and then, you know, and they can go onto the one, then go down in the middle, and then climb the other peak, and then very often die climbing the second peak. So so I've gone sort of as far as the Uzhba glacier, so it's that sort of the bit in the middle a couple of times, but I'm just not an experienced climber to do that. I'm just not going to risk my life there. However, it's one of the probably the most beautiful, to me, the most beautiful mountain in the world. And Svaneti is, because it's got 4 of the 10 highest peaks of the Caucasus, it's actually in Svaneti. It really is very picturesque. It's like, you know, it's called the Switzerland of the Caucasus. So it's got amazing valleys, amazing mountains, snow-capped peaks, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I told you earlier, it has never been conquered by anyone, because they've got this defensive towers. And of course, for many of you in Dagestan, it won't be anything new. I've seen towers like this in Dagestan. However, it's the you know, that's something absolutely unique to this type, is absolutely unique to Svaneti, and also it's absolutely amazing for any international tourists who come and see this. And I'll just move a little bit, because you can see this this guy at the back. This is my friend Becca, wearing the Trans-Caucasian Trail T-shirt. He's my Georgian friend who has helped develop the Trans-Caucasian Trail, and he's now still working on it as a local. And Okay, but key problems in Svaneti. So again, I spent quite a lot of time doing research for my master's. I focused mainly on Svaneti. And again, you know, the problem is it's the tourism development is very ad hoc. So it's not planned. So when tourists started coming to Georgia, and remember that graph from the chart from the very beginning of the presentation, you know, that sort of rapid development, every million tourists every year. When tourists started coming, there was no planning. There was nobody really thought, okay, how many people we want, you know, what kind of tourism we want. There was no strategy, there was no plan, there was no any consultation with the local people, what they want and what kind of tourists they want. So they just said, oh, just come, you know, and very quickly the local people were converting rooms. You know, they had, let's say someone had 4 rooms in the house, they made 1 room into a guest house, you know, so they were just making their own houses into guest houses so they could accommodate tourists. And because of that, you know, there's tourists come, and of course there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of rubbish. So you can see the picture here, there's a Svaneti with loads of rubbish in the mountains. Not to mention the human waste. You know, if suddenly you've got so many people, you know, there's no toilets anywhere. People go hiking for 10 hours. Where do you go to the toilet? You go in the mountains, and then that creates a problem. Also, another problem was in Svaneti that the local people didn't know what international tourists want. So the complete lack of understanding of tourist expectations. They didn't know that people want to come and actually participate in, you know, eat the local food and participate in the in the traditions, and it's that but at the same time, what's a huge problem is the very low quality. You know, of accommodation, quality of service. So, you know, that everyone. Last time I was there about 2018 again, so maybe things have changed, and I put a hand on my heart, maybe things have changed. But last time I was there, and I was in Svaneti probably 7 or 8 times in the last decade, the biggest problem, you know, it's smoking. I mean, everyone smokes, in the local people, and so you get in a taxi to get somewhere, and the men smoke. You know, most Western tourists don't smoke anymore. That was a huge problem. You know, smoking, so that sort of smoking everywhere. The guides were very, very grumpy, very unpleasant. You know, they felt like they just want the money, and they don't want to share anything. They take the money, they take you to the mountains, they chain smoke all the time, and it's just there's that kind of sort of no interaction, no sharing of the local tradition, local culture. It's something that tourists really did expect, and also, you know, unfortunately, very poor quality of accommodation. So if you imagine someone had a house and just change 1 room into a guest room for locals, but there's no shower, there's no toilet, it all looks very sort of old and not looked after, then of course that's bad quality. And just to give you one example, when I was there in 2018, there were 120 guest houses. So, and by guest house, you know, I mean usually places where people can stay with the family. There were 120. However, and most people were just coming by themselves, but everyone wanted to stay only in about 5 or 6 out of this 120. So the 5 were booked up non-stop for the whole year. And all the travel agents were also saying, like, when tourists come, they get recommendations from their friends, you know, from Germany, from the UK, from Holland, and they only want to come and stay in this particular guest houses. So how do, you know, it's 120 and people want to stay 5, maybe 10 maximum. What about the other 100? People don't want to stay in the other 100 because the quality is really, really bad, because they're dirty, because they have no toilets. That's also just something for you. I'm mentioning something for you to think about, that really, if you put on quality, if you put a little bit of investment, it will be, you know, it will really pay off. People will really come and stay in your places. Right. So, and this is a very interesting thing. So this is what tourists want, right? They come to Svaneti and they want to see the towers, the unspoiled nature, just the beauty of the place. And this is not a fake photo. you know, there are places where you can see this, so that, you know, this is really real Svaneti. However, this is very often what they get. And I took this photo last time I was there. Oh, actually, no, 2018 in the summer. So I took this photo. You can see, I mean, okay, the cable with wires, I don't mind because, of course, they need electricity. But this horrendous building with blue roof, this was the newest hotel. And as you can see, when you look at this picture, there is no buildings like this. You know, there are just the towers, and it's very authentic. And again, I'm not saying that new things should not be built, because of course they should be, but they should be built in line with the culture, you know, in line with with other things. I mean, how can you put a hotel like this? And it's just spoiling everything. And it's not only for tourists, but it's just generally for the area. This is what people don't want to get. This is, you know, that nobody will come and photograph it unless it's me to photograph us to show you what not to do. Another thing, this is, again, that was just a very, this is an example of just non-planning again. So these buildings were built, so these are the local, you know, the local buildings, so they're not some sort of new developments, but people will, when tourists were coming, the local people were extending the houses, you know, just making them bigger to accommodate tourists. And again, because there was just no planning, no rules, suddenly everything is just really congested. It's just one house on the other, and it's messy, it's ugly. And again, this is not something, when we talk about expectations, this is not something what people want. Again, because there was no planning, this is a building right in the center of Mestia. Mestia is the biggest village in Svaneti. I wouldn't call it a town, but it's a village. It's the biggest one. It's kind of like the hub where everyone goes. And again, it was built because they had a bit of money. The government, the central government came, built this building in the middle with no consultation with the local people, what they want. Nobody asked anyone in Mestia, do you want this? Do you want, what can we do with this? They sort of came, built it, and then it was never, ever occupied. So you can see it smells really badly. There's loads of dogs, there's loads of waste, there's loads of rubbish, and this kind of stands in the center of Mestia. And again, nobody wants this. Only crazy people like me go and take photos just to show everyone else what's there. So the recommendations, so it's like, you know, what to do to avoid this, what you've just seen, you know. So again, we need to plan for tourism. So you are at the beginning of this journey now in Dagestan, so really think, you know, what do you want? What kind of tourism? What kind of tourist? You know, do you want mass tourism with loads and loads of people? Do you want smaller? Do you want, you know, more individual one? What then, you know, and then based on this, what can you offer, right? So have that clear vision, what you really want to give to people. And this thing, I put it in red because it's very important. Always involve the local people. You know, the local people, they might be scared that tourists will come and then they will destroy the culture. They might be scared that the tourists will come and destroy the religion. There's so many things that people will be worried about, you know, and particularly people in places like, you know, this is a picture here in Svaneti, so it's just sort of me in the corner and then my friend Becca, who was earlier in the tower. You know, we did this community consultation in 2016 for the Transcaucasian Trade Project, but we went to every single village in Svaneti and had meetings with people and just saying, you know, do you actually want this trail? You know, do you want, we had maps of the trail, people were just showing us, oh, you shouldn't go there because this is dangerous, but you should go there. And, you know, and it was just like a very sort of active process of talking to people and seeing what they want, what they don't want. And, you know, and they've never seen tourists before. They didn't know how to react. They didn't know how to respond. But they know what they want to share, you know, and what they don't want to share. And this is something for you as well. One of the key messages I'd like you to take from this is you really have to talk to local people and see, and to work together and see what they want, because what you really don't want is the local communities to saying, to turning back, you know, and saying, no, we don't want this, we don't want to, we're really scared, we don't want them here. And of course, you need to invest in skills improvement. So we really have to just see, okay, we know now what the vision is. We know what we want. What then, what are the skills that now we need to improve for the local people? And again, so these are just some photos. So I'm putting this in red again, and I think this is really very, very, very important to involve the local people, involve the local community. And there's just sort of, as I said, the sort of pictures from the consultations we had, and some of the meetings were very difficult, like this one on the left at the bottom corner. There were loads of men. They were very angry that the government is not listening to them. They were very angry that they've been left out. So it was just very interesting to just go and talk to them, and they really appreciated it. And then just some recommendations after we've done this research for Svaneti. So we're just saying, what can people do? And this will be very useful thing for you as well. If you've got mountains, you can use them all year round, not only in the summer, but you can use them for activities like yoga retreats. You can use them for you can use the trails for biking. Even if you don't have the skiing infrastructure, you can still use the mountains, and just think of using them in a slightly different way. Then we've got the classes, the culinary workshops. So again, using the local food and showing people how to make cheese, how to make bread, how to make khinkali, how to make chacha, the spirit, how to make your local spit, and then drink it with tourists, and get a bit drunk and have a good time. Use the festivals and local traditions. And again, if there's a festival that you want to share as a local community, please do, and involve tourists, and they will have an amazing experience, and they will talk about it. They will remember this for the rest of their lives, and they will tell their friends. And again, when it comes to guides, some of you are guides.
Marta, just that we have enough time for discussion as well. Can we put forward to the recommendations you have for Dagestan?
Yeah. Oh, that's the next one. But it's all very connected, you see. So again, based on this example, so I've got 3 more slides to go. So the things that to remember, based on what we've just said before, just again, you're at the start of the journey, and you might have you might want a lot of people, but remember, a lot of people is not only the best. So ask yourself, do you want this? Do you want the rubbish? Do you want do you want this, for example? If you've got a lot of people, you get things like this in the mountains. Unfortunately, nobody wants this. Tourists don't want this, the mountains don't want this, and the local people don't want this. But this is again connected to that right slide. So again, you need to then plan, ask what you want in next year, and ask what you want in 5 years' time. Involve the local people, work together as well. Even as small businesses, work together, see what you can offer. Some of you will be able to offer a culinary workshop. Some of them will be offered guiding. Don't compete. Don't fight each other for tourists. See if you can get together and say, one day tourists will go and make some cooking with me, and then they will go and do some guiding, and then they will do something else. And again, focus on quality, as I said before. Remember, there's 5 guest houses that people want to come out of 120 because they're good quality, they're clean, and they're authentic. And also very often international tourists, they don't have time. They've got, like, we have 2 weeks of holiday in a year, or 3 weeks maximum. We're coming to Dagestan for 2 weeks. That's most of our holiday. We've got money. We want to spend it well. So we have money, we don't have time. So please help us have that amazing experience. And the last thing, so again, going back to what I've been saying for the last hour, focus on nature, adventure, culture, food, and make sure that you provide us good experiences for tourists. And that's it from me now. So thank you very much. Should I just stop sharing the screen?
Yes, please. There were a couple of questions in the chat already. Thank you very much, Marta, for your contribution. As we can ask questions, just pick up a microphone and ask. Go ahead.
Hello, Marta. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, hello.
My name is Saida. I've been to Svaneti 2 years ago. Fortunately, I've been to this wonderful place as a tourist, and I was there in winter. What do you think about Svaneti, about seasonal tourism? Winter or summer tourism is better to develop there, or is developed there now? From my experience, I can't see that guides have changed there so much, to tell the truth. I like nature. It was wonderful, but I met a few guides there. They were so specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I was skiing in Svaneti in 2018. I took my kids there actually, and so and what I thought, well, it's they've got one mountain, is it Tatnuldi, the one
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it's when I was it wasn't it was maybe it was 2017. It was only a year after it opened. I think they opened in 2016, and so it wasn't that well developed. But in terms of getting there was a problem. So that that's another thing of access, right? So we could only get there. Tatnuldi is about an hour drive from Mestia, from that place that I mentioned. So they got some money from the Austrian companies who invested in the lifts, all the skiing equipment for Tatnuldi. But so this was great. When we got there, there were the facilities were there. However, it's really difficult to get there. So you need private transport. That cost a lot of money, much more than accommodation, to actually have that 1 hour drive there and then one drive back to get there. So that's another thing that but again, because it wasn't planned, there was no sort of longer vision. There was just sort of someone somewhere in the local government probably decided that they want to build a ski resort, and got some investors and invested some money, but because there was no planning, there was not that involvement with local people. Suddenly they've got the resort, but people cannot get there easily. You see, so that's the problems that you need to just look at more like comprehensively at the whole thing, and actually, if the local community were more involved, maybe there would be a better way of connecting, of giving some jobs to the local people to drive people there. But that was completely non-existent.
There was a problem, yes. They didn't want to take people,
yes, exactly.
And we had to go on foot.
Yes,
and
exactly.
to take our snowboarding and skiing. Yes, on our own.
Exactly. So you can see, and I'm sure this is a thing the problem that can be resolved. I'm sure there will be some people who will be willing to drive, but there's that no communication, no dialogue. There's no involvement of the local people, and that's why I was just talking how important it is. So I don't really know what the future of winter tourism in Svaneti is. I don't know how they've been affected by COVID. So it's quite difficult to think. One of the things about the COVID, though, that I forgot to say during the presentation is, all the things that we talk about, that research that I did on tourist expectations, they were all, people want to go in peace, away from crowds, away from urban environments, in sort of nature. This is exactly what all the international trends are talking now about, post-COVID. So this is what tourists want when tourism will return after COVID. Nobody wants to be in crowded places. Again, everyone wants to be in nature, away from the crowds. That's a huge opportunity for the Caucasus, and for you guys in Dagestan, and for Georgia as well. But it needs to be, thought through. It can't just be left and undeveloped, because then things like Svaneti unfortunately happen.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question to follow up. Who was the person in Georgia who started the thinking through process? Because for sure, similar like Dagestan, it was local initiatives probably who started making a plan, thinking about 5 years ahead.
No.
What do you mean who it was? It's very, very regional. So some regions have the better developed than others, because it's a lot of it depends on the local government. You know, if you've got someone in the local government who has a vision, then that follows, you know, through. And then if you've got someone who got a vision and then wants to then you know, and it's got enough energy to then try and get some money from the central government, then you usually need that one leader, you know, that one person who wants to then put things through and look at the plan and then see whether they can get investors and then see if you can get some sort of plan in action. You know, you usually need, you know, if you really want to do a good plan, then you should involve some, you know, some sort of consultants to help you build the plan, and have someone local, of course, to do all the consultation with communities and looking at the area. But, you know, maybe have some external help, but, you know, you need money for this. So usually it's you know, you need some sort of local leader who then can reach out to maybe to international donors, you know, for some money for development. There is something called the Georgian National Tourism Administration. So that's the GNTA that overlooks tourism in the whole country. But they are very, 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 very focused on just growing numbers. You know, that they just want to get as many tourists as possible. And so there's a lot of, before COVID, there was a lot of focus on, you know, there was a lot of focus on just you know, increasing the numbers, and you know, there's a lot of investments in Tbilisi for Tbilisi life and music, but when it comes to the regions, I mean, it's the problem is that you know, the local governments don't really have that much money, and so when I talk about having a leader, you know, someone who really wants to, that leader has to have a vision, but that leader also has to have the energy to look where to look for money, you know, and there are various ways. I mean, they you know, they can get involved in projects, they can try and get projects through international organizations, through international donors, through investors, but that takes the willingness and the energy to do it. So you know, nobody says it's easy, but you know, but in places where you've got the energy to do something, then things are happening. But I can't, you know, to answer your question, Andreas, I can't just give you like one name of someone, you know, because it's not like there's one person who just decided to change something and do it. It's
microphone.
Yeah, I have a name, if you don't mind. There was, according to my knowledge, I read a book of his memoirs. It was Kaha Bendukidze, as I know. He was a minister of economy for the government of Mikhail Saakashvili.
Mhm.
And he was heading of some kind of reforms office in starting from 2004 up to 2011 or something. I mean, up to his death.
As Marta said, one leader, one guy who took charge.
I mean, he had a vision, and he was an extraordinary personality, and yeah, the local governments, and when you have a team, when you build a team around yourself. And that takes, I mean, it becomes a little bit easier to find the money for the next steps.
Thank you, Kamal. You had a question.
Yes, hello, my name is Zaira. I'm interested in the topic of sustainable tourism development, and as we know, with many tourism comes the problem of over-tourism.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any negative aspects of tourism impact on the territory of Svaneti, and if there are, can you please tell us what measures are being taken in order to prevent it? Thank you.
Well, the key negative one is waste, right? So huge problem of waste, of rubbish, pretty much. So so that was the key thing that came up when we did the research and the consultation in Svaneti, and the measures taken. I mean, and again, I don't know what's been happening in the last 2 years, but one of the measures taken was that actually the local government has invested in some you know, very simple rubbish trucks. And then the last time I was there in, God, we're talking, yeah, man, 3 years ago now. Sorry, I'm losing track of time. That was 2018. So I actually spoke to someone from the local government. They're just saying they're going to roll out this program of actually just having, you know, this track sort of reaching as many communities as possible. I mean, some of them are completely impossible to reach, you know, but you can only reach them on foot. But wherever possible, they were going to go and collect the rubbish. But that was like the first time that they had done something about it, you know. And for example, in Tusheti, so again, another mountains region, when I was a year later, they again, through the pressure from international tourists mainly, actually, Tusheti had just invested in big recycling bins, and they had a recycling truck, you know, and a rubbish truck also going to some villages once a week and collecting rubbish. So, you know, so this is, but for example, you know, when it comes to measures, as you said, it's, you know, that means you need to have some sort of planning, some sort of strategy how to deal with waste. And that was like that was the first time in Svaneti and also in Tusheti that they started thinking, you know, they started seeing the problem of rubbish and then just responding to it somehow. Yes, I think that generally, but also, I mean, I don't know how it is in Dagestan, but I think when it comes to rubbish, you know, waste, I think it's also a really huge problem within society in Georgia that people just, the Georgians, you know, and I hope I will not offend anyone, but there is a very low awareness of the impact of rubbish sort of thrown in nature. So, for example, you know, I've seen so many families going for a picnic and then throwing everything in the river from the picnic. Or the worst thing is they're throwing nappies, diapers, right? They change the babies and throw the diapers in the river. And because it's a fast flowing river, you can't see it. It goes. So and people never had any problems with that, you know. So one of the things that the sort of the environmental organizations in Georgia are doing, they've got a program of the environmental education of children, you know, so having programs of just educating, coming from, you know, to small kids, and just showing them the impacts of rubbish. So it's not only tourists that create the rubbish problem, but also the local people. So hopefully you don't have this problem in Dagestan.
Thank you very much.